Hey there, friends and enemies. JoPa here again, and today I want to talk about the recent quality of life update we got for Remnant 2 because it is a massive one and also speaks towards the future of the game that I am very, very excited about. I know we have DLC on the way, but knowing that we also have future major quality of life updates is also very nice to hear as well. So jumping right in, they talk about some of the features we got, such as toggle aim, toggle sprint, a new low graphics quality preset option, aka potato mode for those folks who might be running Remnant 2 on PCs that are struggling quite a bit. Now you can kind of lower the specs in order to allow you to play that more consistently, which is nice. Several bug fixes and so much more. All of the patch notes will be listed in the comments down below. I'll leave a link to that. But keep in mind that this patch is available now on PC and is coming shortly to console as well, PS5, Xbox, all that kind of good stuff. So if you don't have the update yet, it is on the way. So they also talk about how they're planning on going out with another major quality of life update that will be loads of fun for all players. This one has me more interested, to be honest. The bug fixes are nice and necessary for the long-term health of the game. Same thing with performance patches and all that. But it's the fun changes that I'm most looking forward to that are going to elevate the gameplay, the day-to-day of Remnant 2. Because not only will it keep players around longer, but once we get like DLC and everything, players who come in and maybe check out the game for the first time might stick around that much longer if they have a bunch of reasons to do so. So some of the quality of life changes that I would personally like to see as soon as possible. One we know is on the way, which is crossplay, but that's one that they have to handle correctly. I know some people are for it, some people are against it. For me, I'm really looking forward to it because I want to play with folks on PC, on Xbox, on PlayStation, and everywhere, at least when I'm in a squad. Maybe not random across platforms. If people don't want that, you need to have crossplay toggleable so you can make sure you turn it off if you don't want to participate. But overall, I would like crossplay. I want to play with everybody, and being able to do so will extend the lifespan of the game in general for me personally, just because there'll be a lot more options as far as people that you can play with across platforms. I have friends who unfortunately have the game on other platforms that I've been unable to play with, and it'd be nice to do maybe a fresh run with them or do a run on Apocalypse mode or something like that just to see how we can do together. So I'm really looking forward to crossplay myself, and hopefully that's in line in one of the next patches. Then we've also got something like loadouts. I think loadouts would be absolutely massive for this game. Having to just completely swap everything every time you want to change up your build can be fairly annoying. I'd love to have a couple different builds that I'm enjoying swapping between, and that would be something for me personally that would make a massive difference. I like running different builds. I'm not a meta chaser necessarily. I like having a bunch of options, but I don't like having the fact that I have to completely swap everything that I'm doing every time I swap up my build. I would love to have like a one-click function where I could have a different loadout instead of having to swap everything over manually. So that's a personal preference that I would love to see, and hopefully that's another one that's going to be in one of the next quality of life updates. Now, on top of the quality of life changes, I'd also like to see some buffs, maybe a few nerfs, but not a whole lot. Two things that are really either overperforming or underperforming, just because I feel like a shakeup of the meta is overdue at this point. It's time that we start having new things rise up, and that's going to be something that I hope we see in the near future, just because I think the game can get stale very easily when certain things are just the best option all the time. I'm looking at the Enigma, which already got a nerf, but could use some competition in that slot, in the handgun slot for me personally. I know there's other options that are viable at times, but none of them have the versatility and are able to do everything that the Enigma is doing. So that's why I would love to see some other things get a buff to the point of them being really, really good and really viable in certain builds at the very least. And that's something that I know they will do eventually, and we're going to see new weapons, mods, and all that kind of archetypes, all that kind of good stuff once we get DLC. But until then, I think the lifespan of the game can be extended if we have a lot more of these weapons that we've been grinding for. Maybe have some new ones that we want to level up because they are now suddenly really, really good. And I'd love to see that. I think the game has been out long enough that buffing some of your underperforming favorites that aren't doing as well in like nightmare difficulty at the very least would be nice to see. I think there's a lot of viable options. I do think there are some weapons specifically and mods that are just so low on the usage rate that you're just never going to see them consistently. And that's what I would want to see changed for me personally. I love when there's a lot of different options in the meta. I'd love to see more of the melee weapons be absolutely viable and fun to use outside of just for the memes. So that's just a personal preference of mine as far as buffing. I know people are anti-nerfs. I do think nerfs are necessary from time to time, although so far, Gunfire Games have seemed fairly reluctant to nerf anything. We got a little nerf to Nightfall, and even that is still very good. Same thing with Enigma, that got a nerf, but it's still very, very good. And I just don't see them nerfing anything. I would also like to see the underperforming archetypes, such as Explorer, get a little bit of a buff, just because I feel like it hasn't really been worth using except if you're hunting some secrets. And I know that's the whole purpose of it, but I would like to see ways to make builds far more viable with the Explorer archetype, just because I want every single archetype in the game to have functionality across all different play styles and play types and difficulty levels, all that kind of good stuff. I do think that's something that's difficult to pull off. I know some of the archetypes are just going to be more dominant than others, and that's always going to be the case. But if you give some of them a bit of a buff and allow them to shine a little bit more in certain situations, you're going to then have the game in a much better spot, in my opinion, just because then there's just so many more options and people will have more of a choice to make instead of just running the high-end meta. Anyway, that's just my personal take on the matter. I'd love to hear from you guys. What quality of life changes, first and foremost, would you most want to see from Gunfire Games in Remnant 2? What weapons, mods, or archetypes would you think would benefit from a buff the most? And what are you most looking forward to in the future with Remnant 2 as far as like a DLC update? What would you most want to see from them? So all of that is going to say, hope you enjoyed the video. Hit the like button if you did. Subscribe to the channel. It helps me out tremendously. Apologize for the lack of videos recently. I had COVID. I was very sick. I even still have a bit of a cough. So getting through these videos can be kind of rough. But I thank you for putting up with me and sticking around for the entirety of the video. It does mean the world. And I appreciate each and every one of you. My name is JoPa. I hope you have a good one. I'll catch you all later.